Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Objective 12.3 evidence, evaluate evidence of evolution. And evolution is the idea that organisms can change over time, and the idea is that they change through natural selection. So in this objective, we're going to look at different categories of evidence for evolution, and then you can basically do your own analysis of the evidence and determine what you think about it. The first category we're going to talk about is biogeography. Bio meaning living, and geography meaning like place or location. So, biogeography looks at where organisms are currently living compared to where they used to be. This can tell us information about how organisms changed over time. One example of biogeography is called divergent evolution. Diverge means like to separate or to go apart. And those birds are finches. This is an example that Darwin observed on the Galapagos Islands, that there were different islands with different finches living on the islands, and they each had slightly different shaped beaks depending on what they ate. So like this is what we think was probably like the common ancestor finch. And at one point in time, all of the finches looked like this. But then like some went to this island, some went to that island, some went to that island. And over time, the birds with different shaped beaks were able to do better on that island. For example, this must have been an island that had a lot of kind of heavy, strong seeds. So this finch needed a really kind of thick, strong beak to be able to get through them. Whereas this must have been an island that had a lot of flowers, and this bird evolved to have a long, thin beak to be able to get the nectar out. So they started similar and then they diverged based on their environment. Another biogeography example is the opposite of this, convergent evolution. This is when organisms are not related, so they never lived in the same area, or they didn't used to live in the same area, but now that they live in the same area, they have evolved the same adaptations. For example, a shark is a fish, kind of like an ancestor to a fish, and a dolphin is a mammal. So we're not related. Sharks and dolphins not related. But look at them. Look how similar their body plan is. Or even like a penguin, a bird. We're seeing like a streamlined body plan and we're seeing fins. So organisms that were not related can end up with the same body plan if they live in the same place. Interesting. Another category is the age of Earth and fossils. Radioactive dating indicates that Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. This is what the geologists Hutton and Lyell were getting at with their idea of deep time and the idea that Earth has been around for a long time, basically long enough for organisms to be able to change. Here's an example of a skeleton from a whale. And you can see like this is its head and this is its like front flipper, which would be kind of like its arms. And then this is its spine. And then back here we see something weird. There's a bone right there, but it's not connected to anything. This is actually a pelvis bone, or it looks similar to pelvis bones in other organisms, and your pelvis is your hip. So normally your legs would attach right here. So, like, this is strange. Why does a whale that doesn't have legs have this hip bone right here? We have actually found other fossils, and we think that the modern day whale evolved from a land mammal. Like this four-legged creature that walked on land slowly over time evolved to look like this. And we have found fossil representations of all of these. These are called transitional forms. Here's a great little animation of it if you're interested. Another category is anatomy and embryology, so being able to look at the body. Right there is an image of something called a homologous structure. Homologous, homo means same. So if we look at these bones, we have a human, a cat, a whale, and a bat, and the same color means it's the same bone. So that might be surprising to you that like a cat arm is so similar to a human arm, or even a whale arm is so similar to a human arm. These are called homologous structures because they all have the same structures. And this is evidence of common ancestry. Like they all have the same bones in this case. How could that happen? They probably descended from a common ancestor. Or one explanation is maybe they descended from a common ancestor. And I want to point out that even though the structures are the same, they've been adapted to have different functions. Like the human uses their arm to grasp, the cat walks with it, whales swim, and bats fly. So, homologous structures, same structure, different function, used as evidence for common ancestry, kind of like divergent evolution and the finches and the beaks. Another structure is analogous. An analogy is when you compare two things that are similar. For example, bat wings that have bones, and butterfly wing, which is like a membrane, and a bird wing that has feathers and hollow bones. These all have different structures, but they're used for the same function of flight. That's an analogous structure, when it has the same function, but it's made of a different structure. Because the structures are different, we don't think there's any evidence that these were at one point related. But because they lived in the same environment, the sky, they evolved adaptations to be able to fly. Another category is vestigial structures. These are structures that no longer serve a purpose in the organism. For example, some humans are born with wisdom teeth. Do you have wisdom teeth? Will you have to get them removed? I had to have mine removed when I was a senior in high school. They serve no purpose. So why are they there? Maybe they used to serve a purpose in an ancestor. This is your appendix, part of your large intestine, and in humans, it doesn't serve a function. It has a little bit of lymphatic tissue, so it has some like immune system cells that live in there, but really no purpose. You can live without it. Why is it there? Maybe your ancestors used to need it. They used to have a different diet. And then if we take a look at embryonic development, an embryo is like after the sperm and egg form and that cell divides, it keeps dividing into an embryo. And this is where we can compare like what a chicken embryo looks like with a possum, with a cat, with a bat, with a human. These look very similar to me. You can draw your own conclusions. They also all have gills at one point. So, interesting similarity that you had gills at one point in time. Last category we're going to talk about is genetics and molecular biology. Take a look at the cow and the mushroom and the flower and the bacteria. What do all four of these organisms have in common? They all have the same DNA. Our DNA or our genetic code is universal. And that's weird to think about that, like a little bacteria has the same DNA as me and you. And that same DNA codes for the same proteins. It's crazy. Here's an example of three different animals, a mouse, a whale, and a chicken. And this is a section of their DNA bases that code for their Hox genes. Remember that Hox genes control the body plan of an organism. Go ahead and compare the sequences, like compare the mouse to the whale to the chicken. Do you notice anything similar? A lot of bases are the same. Like look at this. AAA, 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 all T's, all G's, all C's, all C's. This one's different. All C's, all T's, all T's, all T's, etc., etc., etc. Like how weird is it the whale has something in common with a chicken, has something in common with a mouse, and yet their DNA sequences are similar. I hope this made you think. Feel free to draw your own conclusions. That's what you're supposed to do. The activity for this one will have you get to find examples on your own and draw your own conclusions about them. Please share your questions with me. Thanks for listening.